Ladies and gentlemen, here's a question that obviously been talked about for the past week. You go to a place like TV Tracks, and they pretty much put up clips from different podcasts that you can find on iTunes and places like it, and listen to what those people have to say. Well, two podcasts that they broadcast the most, or broadcast clips of the most, audio clips that is the most, is Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle, and Solomon. Now, one thing that both sides brought up was the whole Night of Champions deal. Now, Solomonster, during his rundown of Night of Champions, mentioned that fans were not just disappointed in the event itself, but mostly in the main event being overturned the next night on Raw. The main event, the WWE Championship, being overturned and vacated the next night on Raw, the fans asked for refunds. Now, Solomonster, on his broadcast, said he sympathized with fans, basically saying that he understands and exactly where they're coming from, sympathizes with them, and basically says he's okay with them wanting to get a refund, because if you're paying $45 to $55 for what is supposedly a 3-hour pay-per-view where every championship is defended, you're supposed to get that pay-per-view and not, as he put it, a 3-hour glorified edition of Raw. Now, on the other hand, you have Don Tony and Kevin Castle coming out and saying, no, we don't agree with that. We don't agree with you wanting to get your money back for something that you paid for just because you didn't like the ending. Now, I can see where both sides are coming from this. You see, I can understand where Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle are coming. Some of the examples, as unusual as they were, some of the comparisons and examples they used, as unusual as they sounded, they were sort of good comparisons. It's like if you go out and you're buying you go out to one of those nice diners and you say, I want to get this hamburger, I want to get this hamburger. So you get the hamburger, you get the meal with the hamburger, with the big burger, or whatever you want to call it, big specialized burger. And on the side is potatoes. But you eat, so here's what happens. The example is, okay, you eat the burger, but you don't touch the potatoes, and you're like, you know what? I don't like this. I want my money back. I ate the burger, but I'm not eating the potatoes because I wanted onion rings. Or I wanted french fries, so I want my money back. And yet you ate the burger. You can't get your money back if you've already eaten a portion of what you bought. Get what I'm saying? You can't do that. Another example they used was the Mike Tyson allergy, if you will, the Mike Tyson situation back when he was boxing. People would, they would use the example of, hey, people, they use this as an example saying, oh, what would people do back then when Mike Tyson was boxing and they paid $30 to $40 for it? Were they going to just ask for the money back because, the fight ended in less than a minute? No. It's because they knew just by paying $30 or $40, they knew they were paying to see a Mike Tyson boxing match end in less than a few minutes because they knew he was that good. They knew he was that good. So, again, I can understand where they're coming from. It's like if you're paying for something, whether you like the ending or not, or whether the show was good to you or not, hey, you paid for it. Hey, it was your decision to pay for it. Deal with it. But then on the other hand, I can understand where Solomonster is coming from and where he sympathizes with those that wanted the money back and got it back. You see, it's like he mentioned on his show. When you're paying when you're paying $45 or $55, or maybe even $65 if they decide to go 3D, if you decide to pay between those price ranges for a 3-hour pay-per-view, for a near 3-hour pay-per-view, they're supposed to be different than your weekly television shows that build up to it. Then you expect to have something different. You expect to have something special that's basically, way above, or at least, well, basically a cut above, if not way above, the product that you showcase on your weekly shows. You don't pay, $45 to $65 for a glorified 3-hour edition of that weekly show. So I can understand where he comes from with that. Here's a good example. Here's a good example. My mom bought these Jell-O things originally back on Friday. She originally bought those Jell-O things back on Monday. But the Jell-O pack that she bought, the first Jell-O pack that is, the first Jell-O pack of that she bought had an expired date on it. And how is that? And how expired was it? September 14th of this year, she tried eating one the other day and it was falling apart. She calls up and says, "Hey, I want to exchange this." Now she could have easily said, "I want my money back." No, she wanted to exchange it because she was told Jell-O helps you feel better after you've been sick. So she goes and basically says, "All right." So basically, the manager says, "Okay, just come on in, bring your receipt, you exchange it." And that's what she did. She exchanged it for one that has an expiration date that expires in January of next year. Now, like I said, she could have easily got her money back for a gelatin pack like that, or a Jell-O pack like that had an expiration date. But she didn't. She exchanged it. Now, the strange comparison about that, folks, is think about it this way. You go to the store, you buy that Jell-O pack that you see for a good price. It's like 16 Jell-Os in there. And you say, "Hey, okay, I'm buying the 16 Jell-Os, these 16 Jell-Os because they got multiple flavors and they're good for you." And all of a sudden you look at the expiration date and it's expired, and especially let's say you have your kid trying to open it and it just starts crumbling on your kid. And you look at the expiration date. You're going to be pissed, right? You're either going to want to exchange it or you're going to want your money back. Well, as strange comparison as that is, that's exactly how some of the wrestling fans felt. They basically felt gypped at the fact that instead of getting a Night of Champions event that on some occasions usually means a few titles will change hands, basically they got a 3-hour glorified edition of Raw where most of the champions retain their titles, idols if you will. Most of the champions retain their idols by pinfall, by mainly pinfall, or by getting disqualified. And then the one championship, which is the most important championship out of the event, the main event match for the WWE Championship, not only do you basically say, not only do you take that away from them after it looks like you're going to give them a bittersweet ending, and say, "Okay, we've given you crap for about almost 2.5 hours. Here, we're going to give you Daniel Bryan winning the title." Instead of giving them that and keeping it that way, you instead take it away from them and thus completely make Night of Champions a waste of time. You completely rip them off. You gyp them, rip them off of the money they spent on it. So what do? They basically say, hey, you want us to pay with our wallets? You want us to talk with these wallets? Guess what we're going to do? We're going to talk with them, all right? We're going to talk with the cable companies to say, hey, look, we didn't get the ending we got. We didn't really get the ending we got last night at Night of Champions because they pretty much screwed us over tonight. We want our money back. And I'm pretty sure they went on to say, yeah, oh, by the way, the show fucking sucked. Excuse my language, but they told the consumer, oh yeah, by the way, the show, it also blankety blank sucked because it was nothing more than a 3-hour glorified edition of Raw. So you can understand, so I can understand where Solomonster's coming from when he defends them like that. It's like I said, you go to a store and you buy a pack of gelatin like that, or Jello, and you think, okay, it's going to be, you're going to take it home and you're going to eat it later for dessert or for an early breakfast, and then you try to open it up, and when you do, it's falling apart, and then you find out the Jello that was placed in front of you has an expiration date that's already passed. Don't you think you're going to be pissed at the fact that you got ripped off, or you got gypped, or you got tricked out of a certain amount of money? Of course you are. And that's how these fans felt. That's why somebody like Solomonster understands completely where they're coming from. He understands completely where they're coming from. Because of the fact that they felt gypped, that they weren't getting the pay-per-view that lived up to its name, that they weren't getting at least several title changes, that they had basically thought they were going to get, that basically what they thought they had gotten at the end was taken away from them the next night. They didn't like it. They didn't like being gypped. They didn't like it. So what did they do? They answered with the walrus by saying, okay, Cox Cable, okay, Comcast, okay, Time Warner, okay, Bright House Network, okay, Cablevision, okay, DirecTV, okay, Dish Network. You guys want to explain to us what we just saw tonight at the beginning of Raw? You know? Of course they're going to be pissed off. Of course they're going to be mad. The truth is, folks, it may seem ridiculous to some people. It may seem ridiculous to some people. Like I said, it may seem ridiculous to some people, but you know what? It's not ridiculous. Because people have a right to say, hey, we weren't satisfied. Now again, some other examples, I'll give Kevin Castle and Don Tony some credit. Other examples are, hey, you go to a movie, what, you want your refund because such and such character got killed in the second movie and they're not going to be in the third sequel, or in the third movie? Is that why you're pissed? Is that why you want your money back? Yeah, I admit that's a ridiculous reason. But still, that's the theaters. Certain other entertainment medias and stuff are going to be different than what than others. Some places like theaters, movie theaters, are not going to be so quick. Are not going to be so quick to give out refunds. Some are, but there are some that do, especially if it's their fault something happens. I used this example before when I talked about this in my It Doesn't Surprise Me video. I talked about the fact that last year or so, hold on for a second. I basically said in my last video, in my last It Doesn't Surprise Me video, I basically stated that last year as an example of a movie theater saying, hey, it's our fault, our bad, here, we're going to give you a refund, or we're going to make it up to you in some ways. Last year, you can Google this too, there was a movie theater in Nottingham. In the morning hours of 10 a.m. or something around that time, a movie theater in Nottingham, and again, you can Google this, in the morning hours, that was supposed to be showing Madagascar 3. Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted. They were supposed to be showing that. Families go see it. Parents go to take their kids. And what happens? As soon as they think the movie's starting, do they get Madagascar 3? Do they get the characters of Madagascar popping up? No. What do they get? They get a dead flying corpse. They get a flying dead corpse flying right at them. They get a dead corpse flying right at them, right at the beginning. And why? Because whoever was in charge of the projection of that theater, or that portion of that theater in Nottingham, screwed up. Because instead of having Madagascar 3 ready to go, they had Paranormal Activity 4. And that theater in Nottingham, in the UK, had to basically give refunds for what happened. Because it was their fault. It was their bad. It was not, basically they had to make up for the fact that what they were supposed to be giving those families and those kids was not what they gave them. It was way beyond what they were supposed to give them. So that theater had no choice but to try to make it up to them or give them refunds for them having to sit through, particularly the beginning of the wrong movie. So as strange as a comparison as that may sound, that's exactly how some of the fans felt about Night of Champions, and more importantly, about the main event being changed and being screwed out of the following night. They basically felt like they were going to get that Madagascar ending, or that Madagascar 3 beginning on Raw, and instead it gets turned into the beginning of Paranormal Activity 4 because the title gets stripped. Do you kind of see that comparison, as strange as it sounds? Again, I understand where both sides are coming from. But the thing is, yeah, I get there are certain things that you want a refund, that certain things that you pay for, that you want a refund for, that you don't necessarily need to get a refund for because you've already either taken a bite out of it, or you've already ate part of the portion of that meal, or or the fact that it's, you went and saw the movie, you shouldn't want a refund for it, but just because a certain character's not going to be in the next sequel, I understand that. But on the other hand, when I use that Jello example, that Jello situation that my mom went through yesterday, the past 2 days, as an example, when I use the Madagascar thing as an example, of course people will be pissed. Of course people are going to want refunds. Okay? And more importantly, I understand where Solomon's coming from when he says that if you're going to pay for a pay-per-view that has the title Night of Champions in it, then you expect a pay-per-view to live up to its name somehow. You expect the pay-per-view to live up to being a Night of Champions. You expect the pay-per-view to live up to being in exactly what it's entitled. You don't expect it to be a glorified 3-hour edition of Raw, and you don't expect the ending of a match to be changed the next night on Raw, after you've pretty much said at the end of Night of Champions, you know what, here's your new champion, enjoy it. It's like, what was the point of not just ordering the pay-per-view, but what was the point of even giving him the title and ending Night of Champions if you were just going to take it away from him the next night? Didn't make no sense. It didn't. Whatsoever. So so basically, I understand where both sides are coming from, but the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, the truth is, both sides have points, and I can understand where both sides are coming from. But in the end, I understand more so about why fans want a refund. I understand that because pretty much you took away what they thought was going to be a happy ending. And you got to understand, these aren't just, now, Kevin Castle, Don Tony, you guys can say it's entertainment. I get that. I understand where you're coming from there. I really do. It is entertainment. People have to understand it. It's a soap opera. I get that. And and this is all part of the storyline in the soap opera. I get that. But what you guys have to understand, and I'm sure anybody else has to understand, is the consumers that were talking with their wallet saying, hey, we want our refunds, are die-hard indie fans, are die-hard IWCers, are die-hard independent indie wrestling fans, and most importantly, die-hard American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan fans. That's who they are. And if you're going to make a decision to end a pay-per-view with him being your champion, most importantly, the champion of the WWE, the #1 wrestling promotion in the world, and then all of a sudden you decide to strip it away from him the following night, of course you're going to have people pissed. Of course you're going to have people pissed. More importantly, you're going to have those die-hard indie fans, Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, American Dragon fans pissed. Of course you are. And I think what WWE needs to do, because you think WWE doesn't realize this could happen again, because it can. They're going to need to either do one or two things. They're either going to have to give him the belt and let him keep it, or they're going to have to just do a straight-out clean finish with either Randy Orton beating him in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3, at Battleground, or somehow cheating his way to victory. That way, even if it's by cheating, they at least know, the fans at least know they got a satisfactory ending that they know is not going to be switched over the following night on Raw. It's not going to be changed. At least they will know that, and you won't be dealing, and cable companies won't be dealing with this anymore. I mean, so again, I understand where both sides are coming from in the argument, but I understand more about why fans want refunds, because it's not just your average WWE fan that wants a refund. It's more importantly the die-hard IWC indie wrestling fan, independent wrestling fan, American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, Ring of Honor fan. That's who are the ones that are basically asking for the refunds. So, in closing, let me say this. Again, I understand where both sides are coming from, but I understand more about the side that wants refunds, because the side basically is the indie fans, the Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, American Dragon fans that have followed him since day one. They're basically looking about what happened on the beginning of Raw as being, like I said, my mom buying that Jello pack that had that already expired expiration date on it that would pass due, and they look at it as being like thinking they're going to get a Madagascar-like beginning, and instead they get a Paranormal Activity 4 beginning, and that's not what they pay for. So I understand where they're coming from, because that's the majority of the ones asking for the refunds. And it's probably not just them either. It's probably those that are actually getting behind Daniel Bryan, and they want to see it happen, and they're pissed. You know, and they're pissed. They're pissed off about it. They're sick of this shit. They want it to end. And probably more importantly, they want this damn rehash of a storyline, despite its twists and turns and despite it trying to be different than other ones, they want it to end as well. And that's why they're doing it. That's why they've asked the refunds. Not just because of what happened, but mostly because they're sick and tired of the storyline. So, that's all I'm going to say on it. Again, I understand where both sides are coming from, but I understand more so of why people want refunds, and mainly who the people that demanded refunds could be and are. So, let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like, and I'll talk to you all later.